You know, the more I think about this move, the more I feel like this organization is trying to get back to what has worked in the NFL for a long time. Sometimes the biggest decisions aren't the ones that make the loudest headlines. Sometimes it's about finding the right people behind the scenes, the ones who help shape the future of the team for years to come. And that's why this story caught my attention. It feels like we're watching the start of a completely new chapter for this franchise. The roster is talented, expectations are high, and now there's a new voice helping guide the direction of the organization. The interesting part is that we probably won't see the full impact right away. Some of the biggest decisions are the ones that reveal themselves over time. Personally, I think this is one of those moves that's going to have Vikings fans talking all season long. Not because of what happens tomorrow, but because of what it could mean for the future. Before we get into all the details, I want to hear from you. Do you think this was the right move for the Vikings? And if you're excited for the future, smash that like button and drop a SKOL Nation in the comments so I know who's watching with us today. One decision by the Minnesota Vikings may end up shaping the franchise for years. And what makes this story so fascinating is that it almost never happened. There was a point when Nolan Teasley was completely outside the NFL, working in marketing for 6 years, wondering if he would ever get another chance in football. Then, in 2013, he took a shot that most people would never take. He wrote letters to all 32 NFL teams asking for an opportunity to return to the league. Only one organization gave him a chance. Today, that same man has officially become the new general manager of the Minnesota Vikings. That journey alone tells you why this hiring is generating so much attention among Vikings fans. According to the information discussed in the report, Teasley received a single interview from the Seattle Seahawks organization. General Manager John Schneider brought him in as an intern, and from that moment forward, Teasley began one of the most remarkable climbs through NFL front office ranks that we have seen in recent years. His progression was steady and methodical. He joined Seattle as an intern in the scouting department in 2013. From 2014 through 2016, he worked as a pro personnel scout. In 2017, he earned a promotion to Assistant Director of Pro Personnel. Between 2018 and 2022, he served as Director of Pro Personnel. Then, in 2023, he reached one of the most important positions in the organization, Assistant General Manager, working closely alongside John Schneider in player acquisition and roster construction. For Vikings fans, that background may be the most significant part of this entire story. Minnesota is not simply hiring a new executive. The organization appears to be making a philosophical shift. The discussion surrounding Teasley repeatedly highlighted his scouting roots and his football evaluation experience. That stands in contrast to the previous front office direction that emphasized analytics and non-traditional approaches. The argument presented in the report was straightforward. After experimenting with a different style of team building, the Vikings have now chosen someone whose NFL reputation was built through scouting, personnel evaluation, and years of hands-on football experience. Whether fans agree or disagree with that assessment, there is no denying that Teasley arrives with extensive exposure to one of the NFL's most respected front offices. His connection to John Schneider is particularly noteworthy. Schneider has long been recognized as one of the league's most successful roster builders, helping construct championship-caliber teams in Seattle. Teasley spent more than a decade learning within that environment, watching how personnel decisions were made, how scouting departments operated, and how rosters were assembled to compete at the highest level. That experience could prove invaluable as Minnesota enters a critical phase. The Vikings are no longer rebuilding. Expectations are rising. The roster contains talent on both sides of the football. The coaching staff already has established leadership. The quarterback situation continues to generate headlines. In other words, this is not a franchise looking for direction. It is a franchise looking for the final pieces necessary to contend consistently. And that creates an intriguing situation for Teasley. Unlike many newly hired general managers, he is not walking into an offseason filled with immediate blockbuster decisions. Free agency has already taken place. The draft has already concluded. Many of the major roster moves have already been executed. That means Vikings fans may need patience before they can fully identify what a Nolan Teasley roster actually looks like. His fingerprints will eventually appear on future drafts, future free agent classes, and future roster construction strategies. But the first months of his tenure may be focused more on observation, evaluation, and understanding the structure already in place, rather than making dramatic changes. Another important aspect of this story involves Rob Brzezinski, who was discussed extensively in the report. Brzezinski has been with the Vikings organization since 1999 and has long been regarded as one of the NFL's premier salary cap experts. During a difficult financial period for Minnesota, his work managing contracts and helping the organization navigate salary cap challenges was highlighted as a major factor in keeping the team's plans on track. The expectation discussed was that Brzezinski could remain an important part of the organization moving forward, even though the permanent general manager position ultimately went to Teasley. If that happens, Minnesota could potentially benefit from a combination of elite cap management and a front office leader with deep scouting experience. What makes this entire development so compelling is that it feels like the beginning of a completely new chapter, rather than the continuation of an old one. The Vikings have chosen a leader whose NFL story was built through persistence, scouting, and years of climbing the ladder one step at a time. Now, the challenge becomes translating that experience into long-term success in Minnesota. And there is still one major question that nobody can answer yet. What will the first true Nolan Teasley decision look like once the opportunity arrives? What do you think, Vikings fans? Is Nolan Teasley the right person to lead Minnesota into its next era? And does his scouting background give you more confidence in the future of the franchise? Leave your thoughts in the comments. But while the headline is clearly Nolan Teasley becoming the new general manager, there is another layer to this story that Vikings fans should pay close attention to. The timing of this hire is incredibly interesting because Minnesota is entering one of the most important stretches in recent franchise history. Think about the position Teasley is stepping into. The Vikings already have an established head coach in Kevin O'Connell. Brian Flores continues to be one of the most respected defensive minds in football. The roster has been reshaped through free agency. Major salary cap challenges have already been addressed, and the draft class is already in place. Unlike many first-time general managers who inherit chaos, Teasley is inheriting a team that believes it can compete. That means every decision from this point forward will be magnified. The first free agency period under his direction will matter. The first draft class that truly reflects his scouting philosophy will matter. Every contract extension, every roster move, every trade discussion will be analyzed through the lens of what kind of team builder Nolan Teasley wants to be. And perhaps that's why this hiring feels different. When you look back at his career path, nothing was handed to him. He wasn't immediately placed in a prominent front office role. He wasn't fast-tracked into NFL leadership. He spent years grinding through scouting departments, evaluating players, building relationships, and learning how successful organizations operate from the inside. For many Vikings fans, that's likely the most encouraging part of the story. The Seahawks organization has consistently been viewed as one of the NFL's stronger personnel departments, and Teasley spent more than a decade developing there. Every promotion he received represented another vote of confidence from people who believed in his football evaluation skills and leadership potential. Now comes the real challenge. Can he take everything he learned in Seattle and help Minnesota take the next step? Can he help build a roster capable of making deep playoff runs? Can he identify the talent that turns a good team into a championship contender? Those questions won't be answered overnight. In fact, we may not have a complete picture of Teasley's impact for another year or two. But what is clear right now is that the Vikings have made their choice, and they are betting on a football executive whose journey reflects persistence, scouting expertise, and years of NFL experience. The fascinating part is that this story started with a man sending letters to all 32 NFL teams, hoping someone would give him a chance. Only one organization responded. More than a decade later, that opportunity has led him all the way to the top of one of the NFL's most historic franchises. Now, Vikings fans will be watching closely to see whether Nolan Teasley can write the next chapter, and whether that chapter ultimately leads Minnesota back into championship contention. Do you believe the Vikings made the right decision hiring Nolan Teasley as general manager? What is the first move you want to see from him? And how confident are you in the future of this front office? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more exclusive Minnesota Vikings coverage, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest Vikings news, rumors, and analysis. SKOL.